Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely rewire how you process information and turn your reading habits into your ultimate competitive advantage. So if you've ever felt like you're just kind of going through the motions when you read, you are definitely in the right place. We're breaking down the complete strategic architecture of deep reading mastery.
Okay, be honest. Have you ever reached the bottom of a page and realized you remember absolutely nothing? Yeah, we've all been there. We suffer from what experts call information decay. It's that incredibly frustrating moment when you finish a massive report or a critical brief and you realize you haven't retained a single meaningful insight. The time is completely spent, but the knowledge, it's just gone.
So let's jump into Section 1, Seeing versus Solving Text.
The real root cause of this memory wipe? You've probably been treating reading as this big, monolithic task, basically doing it wrong. On one hand, we have seeing words. This is totally passive. Your eyes are moving, your internal voice is pronouncing the text, but your brain is completely checked out. On the flip side, we have solving text. This is what the pros do. It's an active cognitive process where you evaluate written data and instantly lock it into what you already know. We really need to shift your mindset from passively seeing words to actively solving text.
Here's the catch, though. To solve text, your brain needs serious processing power. And a limited vocabulary, that acts as a massive intelligence ceiling. Instead of using your mental energy to analyze high-level concepts, your brain is forced to waste vital resources just decoding basic words. Actually, scratch that. It's more like hitting a cognitive bottleneck. Building up that vocabulary is step one to unlocking your mental resolution.
Which brings us right to Section 2, the 4 reading gears.
Overcoming that cognitive bottleneck means treating your mind exactly like a high-performance transmission. First gear is intensive reading. When you're facing a dense scientific article or a heavy textbook, you absolutely must shift down. The pace is slow, it's methodical. Your goal here is total comprehension, leaving no linguistic stone unturned. But listen, if you applied that same intense energy to your daily newsfeed, you'd burn out your mental battery before lunch. That's where you shift up into second gear. Extensive reading. You speed up to grasp the overall meaning, improve your fluency, and honestly, just enjoy the material without overanalyzing every single sentence.
Then there's your third gear, skimming. Think of this as your auditing gear. When you need to quickly figure out if a 50-page document is actually worth your time, you aren't reading paragraphs. You're rapidly absorbing headings, introductions, and conclusions just to identify the core topic.
And finally, we have scanning. This is your absolute highest speed gear. You use this exclusively when you're on a hunt. You are visually sweeping the page, completely ignoring the surrounding narrative, just laser focused on finding one specific data point, like a keyword, a date, or a phone number.
So when we look at these side by side, this whole transmission system really just comes down to aligning your pace with your purpose. By consciously picking the right gear, you eliminate all that cognitive waste. High-value documents get the slow, analytical depth they deserve, while lower-value ones don't needlessly drain your brain.
Let's take this deeper in Section 3, the comprehension's iceberg. Because picking the right speed, that's really only half the battle. True understanding isn't just a yes or no thing, it's an iceberg. Most folks just scrape the literal surface, what's directly stated. But below the waterline is the inferential level, where you're reading between the lines. Deeper still is the critical level, where you're evaluating validity, and right at the very foundation is the creative level.
Getting to that creative level is literally what moves your career forward. It's the highest possible level of mastery. This is where you synthesize concepts from the text and apply them to entirely new real-world situations. You're taking theoretical concepts from a page and turning them into actionable solutions for unique problems.
So, how do we get there? Let's cover that in Section 4, Main Ideas and Details.
To dive deep into that iceberg, you absolutely must find your anchor. You've got to hunt for the main idea. While you read, you should constantly be asking yourself, what is the author actually trying to tell me? Look at the titles, the topic sentences, the repeated themes. Lock on to that central anchor point.
Once you've logged on to that main idea, you need to spot the supporting details. These are the pillars holding the author's argument up. It could be verifiable facts, specific examples, statistics, or broader explanations. Recognizing these maps out exactly how the author is trying to convince you.
Let's put that into perspective. Say you're reading and you spot a statistic. 70% of students perform better after adequate sleep. Boom! Instantly spotting a numerical detail like this helps you weigh the strength of the text's core argument. You aren't just passively reading a claim, you are isolating the exact evidence used to prove it.
Let's pull this all together in Section 5, the 3-act strategy. So how do we execute this flawlessly every single time so we never, ever forget what we read? Well, effective reading is basically a 3-act play. Act 1 is before. Preview the text and set a specific purpose. Act 2 is during. Maintain an active dialogue by highlighting, taking notes, and asking questions. And Act 3, which is crucial, is after. You absolutely must summarize, review, and reflect on the material.
When we visualize this whole mastery toolkit, it all snaps into place. Skipping that final after stage we just talked about, that is exactly why your information decays. If you finish a text and just close the tab, the knowledge is gone for sure. But combining those 4 reading gears, diving into the iceberg levels, and rigorously executing this 3-act workflow, that is your ultimate shield against data loss.
You now have the exact strategic architecture to shatter that intelligence ceiling and completely transform how you process information. So, the only question left is, which level of comprehension will you use today? How deep are you willing to dive into your next text? Thanks so much for joining this explainer. Now stop just seeing words and go solve some text.